Hey guys, it's Kevin again. Here's my long-awaited review for Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And what Portrait of a Lady on Fire is essentially about is we center on the character of Marianne, and she is this young painter at the end of the 18th century, and this is something that she's very passionate about. And one day she arrives on this isolated island, and basically she has been tasked where she's going to paint this portrait of this young woman named Eloise, who is engaged to be married to a man that she really does not want to marry at all and has no intention of doing so. And so Marianne basically tries to disguise that by posing as like her servant and things like that. And as the film goes on, though it's only supposed to be a short stay, we start to see a legitimate relationship blossoming between these two that really get them to open their eyes up to other opportunities and get a lot closer than expected. And overall, we just get to see how this affects their overall lives, and that's really all I'm going to say. So, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I didn't really know a lot about this going into it. I saw the trailer, and it was a foreign trailer. I've said this 1,000 times. Just, most foreign films don't have very good trailers because they don't know how to sell the movie. And Portrait of a Lady on Fire, it seemed like a movie that was going to be a lot better than when I saw it than what the trailer actually was. So, I remained excited for it, but not to the point where I was like hyped out of my mind for it. But I knew all the praise it was getting and all that kind of stuff. And I also knew that for some reason it was not the film that France was submitting for their foreign language entry, which was very peculiar to me considering it's, besides Parasite, the most talked about foreign film of last year for sure. And after seeing it, I am especially appalled because this is easily one of my favorite films of last year for sure. It's incredibly powerful. It's one of the most heart-wrenching and bittersweet romance films I've seen in a while. But it is also a lot more than that. And we're just into right now, starting off with the cast. And to be honest, there's not a lot to really say here because most of this film is really only three actors, and we'll talk about all three of them, but all of the three actresses in this movie are phenomenal. They all do some fantastic work for sure. However, we have to talk about the combined effort of both Noémie Merlant and Adèle Haenel. Both of them are amazing in this movie. Both of them perfectly represent the hopes and dreams of these characters, but also the inevitability that these two are facing, especially when it comes to our character of Marianne. This is a woman that is a painter in the 1800s, and that's not really something that was supported then, but she's very passionate about it. It's something that she really does love to do, but seeing her get closer to Eloise and seeing this become more than just a job that she's doing, she does such a fantastic job with that. There's a lot of things that this character has in fact kept repressed, and she's finally letting Eloise in on, and I thought that she did such an incredible job here. However, for me, the big standout of this film, maybe of the entire movie, is Adèle Haenel. I thought that she was just spectacular here because she's playing seemingly your typical sort of aristocrat from that era. This rich woman that, you know, has a very lavish lifestyle and has a very, rich family and things like that. And you would think because of this she'd be very satisfied, but she's not. And Haenel perfectly conveys just how little Eloise, how little of her life Eloise actually wants, what she actually wants to do in life. The fact that she'd like to live more vicariously, and especially towards the end of this movie. She has some amazing work for sure, and the chemistry between these two is just so magnetic in that way. They work off each other so well. You perfectly understand the relationship that these two have. You really do get to see it blossom throughout the film, and it's definitely one of the best on-screen duos of last year for sure. And the fact that neither of them got any Oscar consideration is appalling to me. I think both of them should definitely be huge locks in their respective categories, and the fact they're not is definitely very disappointing because they are both absolutely spectacular here. The only other performance, though, to really talk about is Luàna Bajrami. Again, sorry if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, but she plays the maid Sophie. She is this maid that is staying with them, and I thought she also did a fantastic job. She's the kind of character that I feel like, if not handled right, could have just been very understated, very much put in the background. But no, she has a lot to really do here, and she plays off of the other two actresses quite well. And I thought she did a really great job. And in the same way that Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe kind of anchor the lighthouse, these three women are absolutely the anchor of this film. And this film would be nowhere near as good if they were not as good as they were. And they all are phenomenal here. But now we have to get into the directing and the writing, which that is where I really want to talk about this film, because Céline Sciamma, again, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, these are all French names, I'm not good with French pronunciations, but it's fine, it's fine. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, it's fine. Because that likely is happening. That happens with almost every foreign film. I remember I once called Isabelle Huppert, Isabelle Hubbard at one point, and yeah, so it's fine, it's fine. But regardless, her directing in this movie is so good, and you can really tell how much passion she has poured into this film, and it's kind of similar to the previous film I just talked about, Greta Gerwig, and how much she cares about, you know, this time period. You can really tell how much Sciamma cares about that stuff, but also how she's trying to tell a different story, because while this is a period piece, it's a film that I think could still very much take place today. It very much could, because there's a lot of things here that very much are relevant with that. But what I think Sciamma does a great job with is just the mundanity of it all. This film is directed in such a way where a lot of it is just simple conversation, but the way she's able to make it riveting, and the way she's able to make this almost like an amalgamation, because yes, the film can be a romance film, but I'd say it's also very much a character study. It's also very much a drama. It's also very much a, you know, historical epic in that way. There are many things that this film fits into, and it really is because of Sciamma's directing here, which I think is just absolutely spectacular. And again, the fact that she isn't getting more conversation is very disappointing for sure, because I thought she did such a great job directing this film. But her screenplay is easily one of the year's absolute best. I think the screenplay here is just so well done, the way it's handled. And like I said, I'll say right off the bat, I can totally understand why someone would not like this movie, because similar to Roma in 2018, this is a film that isn't as eventful as you would think it is. There are a lot of things that happen, but it's not to the point where there's always something happening. A lot of the film are just these two having a conversation, but she makes it so riveting that I really didn't care. I mean, these two could have been talking about anything, and I still would have been so invested in what's going on. That's because she really gives you a lot of time to understand these characters, and doesn't feel a need to flash back to them, or to show them in another time. She just has them say it, and that is enough to really convey what these characters are going through, whether it's Marianne and the fact that she wants to be a painter and she works so hard on it, even though nobody really takes her that seriously, because she's a woman who wants to be a painter. And the film has a lot to say about the limitations of women in the 1800s, and how this was just not something that they would do very often. It was very much frowned upon, and I think Marianne perfectly represents that, especially in the beginning of the film, where she's with all of these different men on a boat, and none of them are really taking her seriously. I think just little moments like that in the beginning, she does an excellent job with, or through Eloise, who even in the beginning of the film, it's established pretty on that she's not happy with what's happening to her. She doesn't want to be like a normal, you know, duchess or something like that. That's not her goal. Her goal is that she wants to, you know, be able to make her own choices. She wants to be able to be a lot more open-minded, and that's something that her mother is precluding her from doing. And in a brilliant scene with these two on a beach, we get everything we pretty much need to know, and that's very hard to do in a film like this that's so confined, but Sciamma really does take the time to get you, like I said, to know these two characters, but then also show why they would like each other, because both characters represent an aspect of their life they have not really had before. You see, Marianne has never really had someone that supported her all that much, and Eloise very much does, and Eloise has never really had the opportunity to do something for herself. It's always been what she's been forced to do. She's been forced to marry this man because, well, that's just how the times were. She's been forced to be a certain way because that's how the times were. But that's not who Eloise really is in that way. There's a lot more things that she wants to do. There's a lot more things that Marianne wants to do. And again, the film really does lean into that pretty heavily to the point where they really do get to sell you on their romance. It's not really a romance that is handled, is done in the way it is because it feels forced and it needs to happen. No, this feels like a genuine romance. You can see these two really starting to care more and more about each other, and the way it was developed, I just thought was so perfect, and I really love the way it was handled for sure. But there's always a sense, unfortunately, of inevitability there. You always know that this isn't going to work out because of the time period. Unfortunately, while these two women want to be reckless, they can't always be because, Eloise's mother is always getting in the way. She keeps reminding Marianne, like, this is only going to be for a short time. You don't have that long, and Marianne knows that. Marianne knows she does not have that long to make this happen, but they're trying to save her every single moment that they possibly can, and I thought they did such an excellent job with that. And then tying the maid into it all as well, even her, she's kind of going through her own subplot where she needs to have an abortion of sorts, and again, that was something that was very much frowned upon. Hell, it's still kind of frowned upon today by a good amount of people. And the film very much, again, is about women just getting to do things that they weren't able to, and that wasn't respected, whether it was this lesbian romance, or the maid that wants an abortion, or a woman that wants to be a painter. These were just not things that were thought of back then, and I think that for that reason alone, it's why the screenplay is so riveting in that way, because you get so invested in the characters, and again, it's not because of anything big that they're doing with them, it's that they're able to do so much with so little, and those are the kind of films that really do stick out to me. Those are the kind of films where I really do get to see how great of a screenwriter Sciamma really is, because by stripping away almost every aspect of what would normally be in a screenplay like this, I think she really gets to show how great of a writer she is. It's very reflective, it's very compelling, and again, because of that inevitability, there's always this sense of tension, and I thought that she did such a excellent job there. But like I said, a lot of this film is just thriving on mundane conversations. In fact, maybe my favorite scene in the entire film, besides the ending, which I'll get into, is this conversation that these three women have. And it's a very normal conversation. It's just about this book that they're reading, and the fact that all three of them have varying accounts of why a certain choice was made in a book. And it doesn't sound like something that would be particularly interesting, but by getting into their worldviews on just this one subject, we're able to really understand why they feel the way they do about many things, and especially when it comes to the ending and certain choices that are made, which is nothing short of absolutely devastating. It's easily one of the saddest endings of last year that I'll be very surprised if it at least doesn't almost get you to cry, because it certainly did for me. It definitely did get me in a pretty big way, and it's one where I think if you're invested in the story, it's definitely going to hit you pretty hard. And this scene especially, it's one of those scenes where it doesn't feel that important, but once you get to the actual ending, it makes a lot more sense why it's in there, and in hindsight, I think is maybe the most important scene in the entire movie, and it's scenes like that that just really showcase how great of a screenplay this is, and definitely should be having a lot more conversation than it is, and it's very unfortunate that it's not. But the cinematography here, holy shit, the cinematography in this movie is masterfully handled. This is easily some of my favorite cinematography of last year for sure. The way that this film was handled, I mean, every single shot, a lot of people are going to say this, and it sounds kind of pretentious, but it is very much just as articulate, it's just as, I would say, masterfully and well-crafted as a painting would be. It really is. There's so much detail going on within every single frame, and again, a lot of it is just them in this one house, but they do get to explore, like seeing these two near the waves, that shot you see in the trailer. You haven't even seen the full scope of it yet. Just getting to see it, it's absolutely beautiful to behold, and unfortunately I did not get to see this film in theaters, but I really hope I'm really definitely getting more and more eager to, because I think it's a film that really pops in terms of color. There's so many just beautiful sequences here, and not just the scenes, obviously, of Marianne painting, because again, we do see her struggle with that throughout the entire film, and her trying to paint this one painting and things like that, and obviously those scenes are very well handled, but it's the landscape shots and the exteriors, that's what really shines in this movie. They really went all out in terms of the cinematography here. It's so bright and vibrant, and definitely, I think, one of the most eye-popping films of last year. I think even if you don't like this movie, you can at least marvel at the cinematography and just how beautiful it is to look at. It's one of those films where you could watch it with the sound off, and I think you'll still get at least something out of it, because you'll just be able to revel in just how gorgeous everything does look, and that definitely is the case here. The score in this movie, there really isn't one, aside from that that song you hear in the trailer. Aside from that, which is an amazing song that I wish was nominated for Best Original Song, it's definitely one of my favorites of last year for sure. But the sound design in this movie is very similar to, again, Roma, and I know I keep comparing them, but the film is similar in the sense where Roma wanted the soundtrack to be the city of Roma. This film is similar in the sense where they want the soundtrack to be this, island and things like that. And a lot of it, I've heard people say, comes off as ASMR, but don't at all take that as a bad thing. It's very calming. It really sets the tone for what is going on, and it's definitely maybe the best sound design of last year. It's either that or another film I'm going to be reviewing very soon that has the best sound design of last year, but I would definitely put this very high up in the conversation because it's very powerful. It really works in the context of the film, and it's definitely one of my favorite sound designs of last year for sure, and the editing to this film also is just so great. It's a little over 2 hours, and there wasn't really a single point where it dragged for me. I was invested pretty much the entire time, and the film also, it's one of those movies where it has multiple endings. However, unlike other films where I would normally get upset with that, I feel like each ending just makes the film feel that much more complete. It always has this hint of devastation. Each one get more and more devastating as they go on, and I really can't think of a better way for this movie to wrap up than the way it was edited. There are scenes that go on for a long time, for sure, and that might bother some people, but for me, I felt that the longer the scene went on, the better it was, because it just gave us time to really soak in everything that these two characters are going through. So, with some of the best acting of the entire year, with a masterful cinematography, an amazing screenplay that takes the most mundane of conversation, is able to make them so interesting and compelling in that way, two of the best characters of the year, and just a really overall fantastic message of the limitations that women had in the 1800s and why it made these two want to rise up against society and things like that. And I thought they did an excellent job there. It's a film that is just as well detailed as the main character's paintings throughout the film. It's a film that I can definitely see some people getting bored by, because it is definitely a lot calmer and, like I said, reflective than you would expect it to be. But overall, it's a film that, for me, hit all the right notes. It did basically everything that I needed to do, and it's definitely one of my absolute favorites of the entire year. And it's a film that I really do wish was getting a lot more attention than it was. And guys, I think I've made it pretty clear enough. Portrait of a Lady on Fire absolutely gets an A+. Look, like I said in the beginning, I know this was not the film that France submitted. I haven't seen Les Mis yet, obviously, but I just can't understand why they wouldn't pick this film, because it is the second film that everyone is raving about. And oh my god, Neon is just fucking killing it lately. I cannot wait to see what they're going to do next. And if they keep taking hold of great foreign properties like this, they're going to be in great shape moving forward, because it's kind of what Bong Joon-ho was talking about, like that Parasite, when he won for Parasite, that like people really need to overcome that 1-inch barrier barrier of subtitles and open their eyes out more. And I think films like Parasite and this one is really going to do that for a lot of people. And it's great to see because it should have happened a long time ago. And as someone that's always trying to watch more foreign cinema, this is definitely one that I can't recommend enough. But over, guys, to my review, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. The most guys saw this movie overall, left your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.